Okay, this is the Smith & Wesson 455. Yes, I have a thing with 455s. They're a very unique weapon. They don't make them anymore. Haven't made them for many years, and they're just unique. And I really like these things. Again, wheel gun, 6 cartridges. Now, this particular one, this is what is referred to as a 1917 model, but it was actually made in 1904. 455 caliber. Now, if you think about it, that's .45. If it was .5, it would be a 50 caliber, which is a half an inch across. So it's just under a half an inch across on this weapon. Now, what they originally, after the Webley, which was our originator of the 455, Colt and Smith & Wesson moved into the 455 category. Now, what they did was they took a pistol, and they needed these for the First World War. This particular weapon was in the First World War. It has the marking on it, which you can't be able to see very well, which is the crossed rifles and the big C, meaning it was a cavalry weapon. So this was for our, either the British or the Canadian, more than likely the British, used it on their horses. Now, it has the small spur hammer. For the infantry officers, they had a very wide one for their thumb, but the cavalry had a very small spur on it, and the reason for that is because it tended to get tangled in the harnesses and all the gear that they were carrying on their horseback. They came with a very large holster on them. In fact, the entire gun was encompassed in the holster, so there wasn't any of it sticking out. It's a double action, so it works both ways. When the hammer is back, is only if you see how far that trigger moves backwards when it's cocked. It's not a hair trigger, but it's no more than 4 pounds to ignite that trigger. It comes with the original, and what made Smith & Wesson famous in their markings was the gold-plated emblems in it. Walnut stock, just not too big. Again, the infantry officers had a much wider one on it. The cavalry, again, because they were on horseback, had to be smaller, and they could get a hold of it faster out of the holster because everything was done in the sitting position. Remember, when you're on horse. They're fixed sights. This is just simply a groove that's up on the top here, and a very broad, very big blade sight on the front. These were notorious for shooting low. They always have been. The nice thing that's a little bit different about these is they will shoot 45 ACP rounds. Now, ACP stands for Automatic Centerfire Pistol, okay, which is the Colt 1911 used them. The other one of 3 455s that I have, one of them you've already seen, which was the semi-automatic one, will only fire the ACP rounds. This one will fire the 455, which is a rimmed cartridge, or you can just slide a 45 ACP into there, and allowing for the headspace, it will fire, but the spur will not eject the round. So you have to have something to push down the front and push the empty cartridge out. Now, there are things called moons, which is either the half moon of 3 or full moon of 6. I have the full moon of 6. And you put the ACP rounds into the moon clip, which just slides into the cylinder, closes down, compensates for the extra headspace across here. They fire. You can push on the spur handle, the moon, and the cartridges, out they come. Again, beautiful British design. Comes with a lanyard, and when you're riding on horseback and you drop your weapon, you don't have time in combat to go back and pick the damn thing up. So you got the lanyard, you can just pull it up and away you go again. Um, there was, statistically, just over 151,000 of these made. This serial number is 73,000. So this is about halfway through its minting. Again, made in England. This particular one was made by Smith & Wesson. Colt also made one. The difference, if you see a Colt, the only true real difference is, whereas this is swept, has a nice sweep back to it, the Colts came up higher. And this part of the hammer that you can see, which disappears when you pull back, was completely concealed. So just other than the little bump that came up over the top, almost indistinguishable for the Colt. Colt usually has what they call a cylinder gate that pops open. You've seen in the other videos, and you load it in this way. They still had the swing out, which was a Smith & Wesson design, and one of the very few weapons that Colt made that used the swing on it. When I got it, it was quite rusty in here, what they call the spur, and I've taken it all apart and cleaned all that out, and works like a charm. They were notoriously for hitting low. Nothing's changed. It still shoots low, but it has seen some action. It's been fired a lot. It may have done somebody in during the First World War. I don't know, but it has seen service. And there's a little bit of marking on here on the side of the barrel and on here. And what's that from is from being taken in and out of the holster. Because what they would tend to do is they'd grab the gun and then drag it off the back of the holster. And that would take some of the bluing off. This one is blued, which is makes it more valuable. It's a beautiful weapon. Beautiful bluing job on it from the factory. Later on, even during the series of the 151,000 that were made, they started what they called galvanizing. And what that would produce is a gray finish to it, a non-shining gray finish. It was still nice. It was still a nice weapon. Still looked good. It worked exactly the same. But the original ones, like this, had a blued finish. The galvanizing doesn't tend to wear off, whereas bluing does. It has been fired enough that you can actually see the cylinder is slightly different colored than the rest of the gun, and that is because it has gotten so hot from one time or another from it being fired. And that also causes a changing in the bluing. So, another great collector's item. 455 caliber. They're odd, they're a little bizarre, and they quit making them many years ago. And this is one of my 3 455s. Unique caliber, unique little guns. You'll love them.